Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new series called The Journal Show. So, I have tried multiple times in the past to make a political channel, but this time I think I can actually work this out. So, over here, this is our first video. I have Qubit over here, and I'm going to be asking him just some general questions about his political opinions. Say hi.
Hello, my name is Qubit. My Discord tag is Qubit hashtag 9136.
All right. Should we roll into the questions?
Sure.
All right. Let me just display the question on screen real quick. Is that gonna work? Okay. All right. So the first question is, what ideology are you? Like, what do you believe?
Okay, so I am a moderate liberal center left capitalist mutualist, for the most part. Those are the most significant, like I would say, ideology tags, like to me. Um, I generally believe in protecting the civil rights of individuals and protecting minority groups. So I believe in equality, not equality of an outcome. I think equality of outcomes, things like affirmative action and stuff, I think those are pretty shitty. In general, I would say that like I tend not to be anywhere near like a neoliberal whenever it comes to policy.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to even not even vote Democrat sometimes, right? Like last election, I voted for Donald Trump, which was a mistake, I think.
Oh
At
yeah.
least I'm positive. I'm very positive it was a mistake. And at the time, I was registered, and I still am registered conservative Republican, but my opinions have changed. But I still would vote independent to this day.
All right. Um. So yeah. All right. I'm gonna move on to the next question. So hold on. Let me just display this on screen. Okay. Just gotta resize this real quick.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So generally, what are you against, like politically? Anything.
Sure. So I would say politically, I'm against platforming people like Stefan Molyneux and Nick Fuentes. I'm generally against promoting ideologies that I deem to be harmful and can cause can cause harmful acts, right? So we can see the radicalization of white nationalists and stuff, and most recently the most white nationalist terrorist attacks, which I have data that I could present as well to show more significantly in recent years that we've had more white nationalist attacks, any left wing related terrorist attacks, and these are all domestic terrorist attacks as well. There's plenty of cases of this happening constantly. That's something I would say I'm horribly objectionable to. Promoting these people allows these ideas to spread, and platforming these people allows them to be able to spread these ideas in such a way that they have loyal fan bases and like almost like die-hard fans because they have these smaller platforms and stuff, and these are their escapes, right? If they have no platforms, they have nowhere to spread their ideas. But even just having small, less significant platforms, like generally circles around like these die-hard fan bases that are consistent in these circles. Many of the alt-right groups and stuff, and like they generally tend not to agree with each other. Like they would never unite amongst each other. Their ideas tend to be so extremely different besides certain beliefs like utilitarianism, right? So a lot of the disingenuous and dishonest arguments you would hear from them happen to be based off of like if the ends meet the means or whatever. Sorry, the means meets the ends, then it's okay to do so. So an example of this would be like gaslighting, disingenuous rhetoric, um, trying to trying to promote ideas based off of like non-analogous examples whenever people cite Rome and stuff in order to make an example or make a argument for fascism without the person knowing it. A lot of apolitical people might fall for a genetic IQ uh, debate based off of some of these arguments that they misinterpret information for, and whenever presented examples such as alternative reasons, such as low socioeconomic outcome, um, environmental outcome, uh, and a lot of the times, like the ability to make infrastructure in some of these countries, like or even continents. Africa is a large example that they like to bring up, and they often refer to, oh, well, I mean, like if they're not genetically inferior, why is the case happen to be even in like Western countries, they happen to score like an 82 average IQ, and as well as that, how come Africa can't build its own infrastructure? And there's alternative answers to those besides genetic IQ, such as like it's so much harder to build infrastructure in like sub-Saharan Africa, right? As to where it's very hard to like for one thing, it's hard to construct like anything past a village out of fucking like straw or something in like sub-Saharan Africa if you don't have external infrastructure to literally come over and like build these places for you, right? Like whenever the Europeans came, we implemented a ton of infrastructure under contracts and stuff that eventually that we knew they couldn't pay off, and whenever they can't pay off that they can't pay it off, like they end up mining the resources of that area. So like let's say an example of this example would be a current one with China, where from what I understand, China has given a contract making these countries, turning them into developing countries. But in the end, they're not going to be able to pay off that contract that they owe to them, right? So
And then,
I
like,
think I hear two different. Yeah,
So
I hear.
so basically, you mean like so China recently in recent years, like the Belt and Road Initiative, you mean, where they'd give up some, they'd give up some like developing infrastructure, and then in return, if they weren't able to pay off that debt, or whatever, they'd like set up a military base or like a fort or like a. Is that what you mean?
They would go in there and mine the fuck out of the resources, right? So let's say you can't pay this off, right? This is from what I understand, right? Like without reading very little literature about it. Um, it tends to be it tends to make me believe that they'll go in and do the same thing Europeans did. Is like, you can't pay us off, well, we're going to mine your resources, right? And that's been happening. So, an analogy, I suppose an analogy would be, if you can't, like a feudal system, right? During the feudal system, whenever you were born under like the same debt of your great grandfather, right? And whenever your great grandfather took that contract to like the noble in like your area, like you were given a contract to farm this much wheat that you would have never been able to farm, but never been able to find out you couldn't farm. In this case, like what they're doing is something similar and has been done in the past. And I think the issue with that is, which it's good to have a developing country as a trade partner, right? Like that's always a good thing. Like I think Africa is more valuable as a trade partner than a liability or something we have to like go in and like fix issues in sometimes, right? I think that if we could have these developing countries become trade partners, that'd be like really good. And so China, that's something, a benefit that China will give them. But eventually, like I feel as if Africa isn't able to stabilize itself after it can't pay that contract anymore, and infrastructure isn't coming in to like fix these places and stuff, like if they don't become developed countries before they're developing, in that case, I would say, well, that's an issue, right? That's something that would concern me.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna ask another question now.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm actually gonna make up a question right here because you actually went really into depth about Africa's development and stuff.
Yeah.
Here.
And as a reminder, that's relation to the ethno-nationalist, like fascist genetic IQ arguments that, oh, well, they're dumb because, they're genetically inferior. No, they're dumb because they're horribly underdeveloped. And if we want to go back into that for give me a minute to talk about America's situation, it is not more than 3 generations ago that Jim Crow laws were in act. And as well as that, like these people, like due to redlining and other issues, like having still discrimination after the fact, and we can look at statistics and stuff based off of if you have like a black name, you might get like you're less likely to be hired to a company on average. Like there are plenty of things like systematic discrimination and stuff that still are in play, and these people are often in these low socioeconomic areas in poverty, and the likelihood statistically again to get out of poverty is very, very low. They are born in poverty, they're majority in poverty. I could make a low socioeconomic argument for that also.
Okay. All right. Now I'm gonna ask the second question. So, sorry, this third question. How do you think Africa could stabilize more as a continent?
I think Africa if they really couldn't do it by themselves. I think if they were to do things like try and get people investing into their countries to make them trade partners, like that's something I think that is interest in some countries. Like I think maybe not politicians, but people at least that I know are interested in like having like Africa become a trade partner of the world. That could be a significantly good thing for all of us, right? Um, and that's for a couple reasons. And those are things that I've already mentioned generally. Like if you have a country like Somalia that is known for like, being a liability by causing trouble and stuff because uh, they have no way of gaining and they have no way of like state or what's it called? They have no way of living, right? Their way of living is to try and like go and do like criminal activity or what we consider criminal activity, considering they don't have like I don't think they even have a law system, and if they do, they don't follow it. They generally go through like what we call them as like pirates and stuff. They would do activities like go and rob a boat or some shit, or like threaten to kill someone for money. Like they often like they have hostage situations and stuff that we've seen in the past. Like there was a movie made about one of those, but I don't know how much money they're demanding in that, or if they just wanted the boat. But like they are a liability. Like what if we could go in there and provide them an alternative to crime to make it right? Like it's always the case in these areas where people don't have some way of living that they turn to crime as an alternative because they have to make money, because they have to eat, they have to like have shelter, they have to have basic necessities of life. And if the alternative is crime, they will choose the alternative rather than fucking starve to death.
Yep.
Well, wait, there's another reason. What was the other reason? I forget what I already said. I think another thing I mentioned was having them as a trading partner benefits the world in the sense of like globalization, right? Like globalization, I'm a globalist, right? That's probably something I should have mentioned before. Um, Having more trade partners is always a good thing. If you have a country that can specialize in something competitively against other countries that other countries don't already do, that's a benefit to you because then you can have that resource exported to your country at like a lower cost, or have it imported to your country at like a lower cost than what other like countries could make it for. So having trade partners that can specialize in something is always a good thing.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna move on to the next country. Sorry, the
Sure
next
thing.
question. Okay. So, are you? So you mentioned that you're American, right?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on. I'm just gonna type out this question. Okay. Just gotta resize this. Okay. Are you proud of your country in its current state?
I'm always proud of my country no matter what. Like I'm a civic nationalist, right? Like I love my country, right? I love I love my constitution. I love my laws of my country. Like there's the only thing that I wouldn't amend any of the amendments. I wouldn't amend any of them, right? I might alter things about like free speech. I would consider um let's say like misgendering someone. Or not even that. I would say just in general, I would give a bill a bill like C-16. I would implement that for protections for like transgender people, right? Like that's something I care about because those are the same protections we already have, right? And I consider that to a threat to people in a way to their health, right?
Mm-hmm.
If and I don't think that I think some people would agree, or at least most people would agree, that like threats don't nearly just consist of physical threats. Threatening physical violence isn't always like the only threat, and people don't like agree. Like whenever it comes to free speech, they would probably extend that to mental health as well. So I would consider that like not having a bill like C-16 for these protections that everyone else already has. By the way, for this minority group that is obviously struggling, not having that I think is bad. I would implement a Bill C-16 in America for these protections for transgender people, right? That is something that interests me specifically. And that's something I would change about like the speech we're allowed to have. Like implementing hate speech as a law, like how fucking, I think it's French Canada
Mm-hmm.
does. Like I'm pretty sure French Canada has laws, and I could be totally wrong on this. I have not researched this, but I think French Canada has laws where like hate speech consists outside of businesses too. What I'm
Mm-hmm.
speaking about is I care about these things having. I should mention this. I care about having a Bill C-16, which is what it applies to for businesses and organizations or whatever. Like this doesn't apply to your like public life, right? These are things that are like a privatized bill. Like this reflects like these businesses cannot sit there, like your employer can't come up to you and say, "Hey Butch, like what's up faggot?" Like they can't say that thing to you,
Yeah.
as much as you can't come up to a black person and call them the N-word, right? Which is very controversial amongst Destiny right now. So those are I would never amend anything on the Constitution, right? I would just make sure I'm implementing the same civil liberties and protections that everyone has, like for every group that needs it.
Yeah, because recently in recent times, around like the 2010s, 2000s, a lot of people have been coming out as gay. People have been supporting trans rights. Definitely, it could be considered a minority group, just like an actually pretty good minority group that would need protections. That's what you're trying to tell me.
Okay. I would say it's a significant enough impact on these people's like living. I'd say
Yeah.
it's an impact on these people's like health so badly that it should be implemented to protect these people from those issues, right? So even though they make up like less than 1% of the population, I think they make up like 0.4% of the population of the LGBT community. Um, these people are still like threatened like of their mental health, of having long life-term suicide rates significantly rise in these bad environments, as to where a bill C-16 would stop that and significantly decrease even by a 20% margin at least in these environments for these people's like lifelong term suicide rates. UCLA's Williams Institute did a study on this of like the effect certain environments can have and dialogue can have to transgender people if they're having it all the time, right? Like their suicide rate at worst can rise up to like 63%, right? 41% or 42%, I think, is a different statistic that people use, and they even think it reflects on like suicides committed. No, it reflects on suicide attempts, right? And lifelong suicide attempts. But it can be as high as like 60 something percent for a bad environment for someone who's transgender for their like suicide attempt rates.
Okay. I definitely would have to agree with you on that. Um, so I'm gonna move on to the next question. This is about something you mentioned. I heard the word hate speech a lot, and you were trying to bring up an example about in French Canada they made some laws about hate speech. I'm gonna ask you to define hate speech.
Oh, that's hard. That's really hard because it depends by
I
country.
mean, you
like
can at least try, I guess.
The UK's definition of hate speech would differ from French Canada's definition of hate speech, and I could sit here and just cite you a better definition off of like fucking Google or something. And honestly, I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
rather do
Wait,
that.
wait. Actually, how about this? This will be an actually easier question to answer. Um, when do you think freedom of speech goes too far?
When it hurts people.
Okay. What would you mean by hurting people?
Sure. So like if your speech is having an impact on someone's like quality of life in the sense of like you are threatening or harming
Like
them,
you
or
were, like you were like directly just saying, "Hey, Johnny, I'm gonna kill you in real life because you're a Muslim," or something like that.
yeah, it's like something like that. It's like I gotta kill you because you're a fucking Haji or something. Like that's whenever I would say it like stops. Like whenever it actually threatens someone's like life, or like it threatens someone's like uh what's the word? It's like viability, but it's not. It's like it describes a person's um fuck. It describes a person's
Well-being.
health, yeah,
Yeah.
well-being. Like if it threatens their well-being, like in that case I would say like I would find it like not objectionable at all to like implement laws to prevent that from happening,
All right.
as long as it's just proven, as long as there's data behind it to prove it.
Okay. So what you're saying is like if someone were to directly be making a threat, you would say that's the point where freedom of speech goes too far. Like,
I would say before they're directly making a threat. Like it doesn't have to be a direct threat. Like if there's data to say like this is such a significant impact on like someone's like well-being or something, that's whenever it should stop.
okay. Yep, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that. Um, Let me see what else I have it to ask you. All right. You partially answered this question before, but this is about the question of gay/trans rights. So, what do you think of gay or trans rights? Like, just your general opinion.
Um, yeah, like I think that we should be giving them the same civil liberties as everyone else. So I mean, like protections and stuff that other minority groups have. Um, yeah, I'd just be in favor of that. Really, like that's all I have to say about that. Is like to get them rights that they need to be able to like function like in like the so like to be able to function in society. Like they have to be. I would say that they have to have certain protections that everyone else already has, like blacks and other like minority groups. I say blacks predominantly because that's a big one.
Yep. All right. So I would have to agree with you on that too. Um, Recently,
Okay.
just finish opening your door or whatever.
Yeah. No, I'm closing my window.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
smoking a cigarette.
All right, but in so basically in recent years, um, gay more people have been coming out as gay, more people have been coming out as trans. Um, so definitely is that I think back in the 1900s, I would say we would still need the same type of protection. Um, would you have to agree with that?
At the time, yeah, like they could have. I think that a lot of people could have used a lot more protections during like the 1900s, early 1900s and stuff. That's what you're referencing. Like, there's tons of people that could have used protections and stuff that never got them. And so like, it wasn't a time where people were even recognizing this or had the data on it and like didn't even like think that it was that much of an issue, right? Like, and even if they did, they probably wouldn't care. I think that like there's a significantly different uh, level of moral culpability that I could put on those people, considering they don't have like a lot of data, right? Like they think if they shout like the N word at like their neighbor or something
Mm-hmm.
like that, that like they're not actually like, and I don't think in most cases they're harming people, right? But they don't realize like promoting like bigotry amongst bigots and stuff at the time. There's plenty of bigots can actually cause like a result in harm to these people because it like can promote harmful ideas to like um, I'd say manifest in like people's thoughts, right? So we have data on that also. Promoting bigotry amongst bigots actually normalizes that behavior, right? And that behavior can become can become harmful acts.
Yep.
And so that's something that concerns me. And at the time, they had no fucking data on that. Like they had no idea to know that. If they did, they probably wouldn't care. Type shit. Like it doesn't like that's something I can't really measure or value or evaluate as well. Considering the moral culpability of those people is probably much like less.
Yep. All right. I'm gonna think of something else.
Okay.
So this is gonna be actually a pretty hard question for you to answer. Definitely anyone on the political spectrum will have a problem with this. What are some flaws that, you, if there are any, about your ideology, like your beliefs?
Uh, I never know. I never know when I'm wrong. If someone can't demonstrate it, like that's just universal. If someone can't demonstrate when I'm wrong, I obviously don't know when I'm wrong. That's just the issue with every ideology. Um, and a part of that is like if you grant yourself the benefit of being correct, right? So let's say I grant myself the benefit of being correct to an ultimate degree, right? Like I am ultimately correct and cannot be wrong. You see this like a ton amongst all the.
That
That's
is
my dog.
that is a terrible. I'm just gonna say that is a terrible philosophy to have, but people subconsciously do that.
Yes.
Well, see, for many Republicans, you'd say, "Oh, look at those stupid liberals! Every single one of those goddamn liberals. They're all just wrong. They don't.
People.
I don't have a single thing that I agree with on them. I am 100% against liberalism.
I would.
I had a friend who said that they were 100% against the left and they were Republican. That's a very dangerous belief to have, to be 100% um, against a certain ideology without even knowing, 100% against a certain person without even knowing them, just because of their beliefs.
I am 100% against like any Marxist, Leninist, Maoist, Stalinist economic theories, right? I don't think that any of those ideologies are worth even like considering to implement any time. I think that planned like centralized planning, sorry, is something that's failed significantly. I would say like in the USSR, like whenever they had that big crash in the or in the early 1990s, or
Yeah.
maybe it was like 1995 or something. Like they had their biggest crash is because they were actually like alternate. from one economic system to another like very rapidly, and I would say that's related to the crash in that case. But I think that like it's such a dangerous like economic theory, and it just hasn't worked out so far. And whether it be, this is the argument I have for fucking commies, right? Whether it be because capitalism come over and fucking beat down, it beat down communism, not real communism, right? If this is something Destiny said, if your economic theory cannot withstand outside pressure from your other competitors, that is a failure of your economic system. Okay, I am diametrically opposed to communists. I find communists to be a huge threat to national security. If they were to rise in some kind of significant power, right, that would be something that would fucking concern me 100%. When I actually say I don't grant yourself the benefit of being ultimately right, what I mean to say is like you can never sit there and be like, well, I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm positive this position regardless of what arguments you give me, right? And those are the kind of people we see on Discord all the time on these debate servers, especially predominantly like politics, right? Politics Blue, the one that fucking asshole Dubia owns, right? Who was a terrible person, by the way, and an ethno-nationalist I've debated before. These people are so ridiculous whenever it comes to debating someone, because they've already granted themselves the benefit of their position being right and assuming the other person's position to be wrong. And as well as that, they assume the other person's positions. They assume the other person's arguments. They commit so many fallacies at once, and they don't recognize that you can sit there and like determine it to be a fallacy. That's irritating. It's very frustrating. And whenever I say that, like if you're doing that all the time, you'll never be able to exchange information honestly, and then you'll never know if you're actually correct. That's what is a dangerous thing to do. I think that I've very well moved positions within the past year and a half just through like holding the principle of like exchange of information honestly. So I've moved through so much of that. If someone were to leave a comment in the comment section proving me wrong, that would be a position I would change instantly. Okay, these are not ideas I'm married to at all. If someone can prove me to be wrong, I will happily take whatever position they are like providing as a better like source of information. Like it's really like it's very much based off of like how right can I be, right? Like if this person can provide me with a better solution, that is my next best information. And I think as long as people are honestly working on their next best information, they're not wrong. If you're working on the best information available to you, you're doing a very good thing for yourself and other people.
Okay. So what I would like to say to that, so what you're basically saying, so I said before, that I believe that if you just were to judge someone just based on their political beliefs, I don't think I phrased that properly. I'm basically more bent on what you're saying. I'm more believing in that. Well, so then I'd like to say, if you know, you need to actually learn more about that ideology yourself. You need to, I guess, read some topics that aren't just generally just biased towards your point of view, and then you can formulate a proper opinion on that. Because you're seeing a lot of, I know a lot of Republicans, for example, they'll only watch Fox News, or they'll only watch some really just right wing biased source. They'll not hear anything about the other side, and then in that case, they're going to not be able to judge properly the other side.
Okay, I mean, like, yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Like, I would see like a lot of fascists fucking cite me Breitbart and shit. Like, but for the most part, like I would say like a bigger concern to me is like how polarized these people are to the like other groups and stuff. And I honestly, if we're gonna go based off of like what you should base your ideology off of, you should base your ideology off of statistics, and you should base your ideology off of like philosophical axioms, right? And also fallacies. You should always be basing these things off of like what is actually accepted to be like logical like logical reasoning, logical arguments, right? Like the easiest way to figure out when you're wrong is to debate people as much as possible, right? And your debate partner matters. Like I don't have a specific debate partner. I go and debate people constantly. I'm always on debate servers. You can always find me. My tag is Qubit pound 9136. You can fucking always find me, right? I'm always debating, and the case happens to be like through that act with honest exchange of information, reading statistics, looking at data that is proved, right? And if you think that there is a specific, this is something I hear all the time. How do you trust that liberal statistic, right? Because you can't debunk it. If you can't debunk it, You cannot sit there and falsify the information. If you can falsify the information, you're on to something, and that information is no longer credible, right? You have to work off of your best information. That's the best you can do. If you can find me a better way of determining something, I'll listen to it. I'd be happy to. But in most cases, no one's provided me that example yet.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next question. All right. I've had a lot of questions you've already answered. All right, this is gonna be a big one.
Okay.
Pretty much, this will be pretty hard to answer. This is a very, very a question that you could get shot over by some random bozo.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to literally resize this on the screen.
What do you think about putting black people back in Liberia?
All right, all right. If there was one part of the U.S. Constitution that you would want to change the most, what would it be?
Nothing.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I like the Constitution and how it's written currently.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna resize this. Okay. We're back. About the arrest of Julian Assange, what do you feel?
Oh, Julian Assange should be fucking, like, he should be executed for treason.
Okay. Why do you say that?
I say that because that's the only excuse I could see for killing him. But, like, he has literally just fucking released information of whistleblowers, literally just fucking full name everything. They don't give a damn. 3 fucking people died, CIA agents all at once, and fucking shot out into, like, some fucking, like, middle of nowhere type shit because they fucking didn't hide their names, right? Like, he is a fucking criminal, right? He is a worthless piece of shit. I hate Julian Assange. The reason I say that he should be shot for treason is because that's the legal excuse I fucking have for, like, having him be killed, right? Like, it's like I'm like a moderator on fucking Discord right now, selectively picking rules, right? I'm selectively moderating certain people based off of the rules right now. That's how I feel about Julian Assange. He should be fucking killed.
Okay. Um. Okay. So now I'm gonna ask you the second question. About whistleblowers. So whistleblowers in general, what do you feel about them?
I mean, like, for the most part, like, as long as they're not releasing, like, stupid fucking information or something that, like, in any case, I can't think of any. It's like, I think that whenever, like, Jason Applebaum comes out to, like, DEF CON, I think it was, like, 18 or 19 or something, and he's like, look, dude, look at all these fucking NSA tools. Like, I think that's hilarious, right? Like, that's whenever we got
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see.
That isn't proper.
Yeah, I think that's totally ethical, right? What I have an issue with, right, is, like, God, I wish I could think of some examples right now, but it's like whistleblowers or something. Like they'll release information or something, right? And it'll be based off of, like, obviously their ethics or something, right? So they might release them that I think that, like, shouldn't be released, that could harm a fuckload of people, right? Like, remember whenever WikiLeaks, some whistleblower leaked some information that got some guy that was undercover in, like, fucking Iran or something? Where the fuck was it? Some Middle Eastern country. Like, they got that guy fucking, maybe it was Russia, actually. See, this is a thing. I should have actually had a better example of this, but, like, this is researchable. Like, there's been times when these whistleblowers, like, they're like, here's this guy, like, he's, in the part of this document, we mentioned that there's a fucking spy over here, and that guy gets fucking jacked and shit. Like, that's really irritating.
Yeah,
Right? That's shitty.
I don't personally. I don't think. I don't have much of a formulated opinion on Julian Assange, but certain things should be, like, just cut out, or something shouldn't be leaked at all. Like, for example, spies. You shouldn't just publicly say what someone's name is, if, for example, that would change
What
national security. Yeah.
you shouldn't publicly release information that threatens, like, someone's life who's not in you're trying to expose.
Yeah. In my opinion, I don't really have much of a formulated opinion on Julian Assange. It's just something. It's not really much of a recent matter, but I just put it in there. Okay. This is gonna be the final question. All right, and then I'm gonna cut it out. And then
Okay.
end the video. All right.
All right.
Okay. Another hard question. Do you think that people should be allowed to wave Confederate flags publicly?
Oh fuck yeah, I think they should be allowed to do publicly. Do I think they should do it morally? No. I've argued this a bunch. Like I've heard really good arguments. I used to be of the opinion like who fucking cares? It's the Confederate flag, right? Like go cry somewhere else, right? I used to be the of the opinion of
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
and everything. But you like from what I can tell, like these kind of arguments don't hold up whenever someone's citing me an example of like fucking ethnat Jim over here wears like a white pride fucking shirt with like a Confederate flag on his truck, right? And he's using that to promote his ideas outside of the people who see that as like a historical like like heritage symbol, right? Like they say it's like a symbol of heritage for the like area, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
for their like state a lot of the time. Like these people who are using it like, hey, I'm like from the South, very proud to be from the South, right? And they're waving the Confederate flag. Like I see nothing like bad of those people, right? Like I see no moral culpability in them. Whenever it's like fucking like white nationalist Jeffrey or whatever, and he's like got his white pride shirt on and everything, and like his ideas are centered around like fucking like white supremacy.
And I mean, he's just
Um,
yelling at the brown person and
well,
saying,
not even
"Now,
he
oh,
doesn't
shirt is law," or
he
something
doesn't
like that.
have to do that,
Yeah.
right? Like he just like this helps normalize behavior to let these people like poison with their ideas out in like public poison with their ideas out into like the like free marketplace of ideas. This like letting him like allowing that to be normalized lets him sit there and get away with like using that as an excuse to like poison the free marketplace of ideas through like, hey, like, you know what I mean, like uh I can wave this around for this reason and stuff. And this allows me to make certain arguments against like minority groups as well, because like this is socially acceptable, and like as a result of being normalized against by people who are using it like I would say what I would call the correct way. And so now I can use this to like infiltrate like the free marketplace of ideas and tell people these ideas, disingenuous utilitarian like a tactic of like debating with these people and exchanging information with these people to harm like which causes harm later on by radicalizing these people against these minority groups and stuff against like even sometimes even against other fucking white people because they're so and that can again going back to normalizing bigotry, promoting its acts of harm, studies done on this, it all relates back to that. So in that case, I love Confederate. If I had a fucking Confederate flag, I would fly it on my wall. But if I had to stream, I would take it down.
Got it. All right. Okay. Um, I believe the recording has been going for 38 minutes now. Actually
Okay,
39 minutes. Some of this will be cut out, by the way.
that's
But
fine.
yeah. But other than that, it's just for like people. It's just for viewability. If someone wants to watch this, I don't know if they're gonna be able to watch an entire 40-minute long video. But if you guys enjoyed this video, please actually comment down below. I would appreciate if you gave me some constructive criticism, gave me some suggestions. I would appreciate that. And if you need to contact me, I will have my email listed in all my channel's info. I will see you all later. Goodbye.